Welcome back. African private equity firms cashed in on investments last year at the highest rate in almost a decade, with South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria and Kenya accounting for two-thirds of these exits. According to a report by Ernst & Young and the African Private Equity and Venture Capital Association, equity firms sold investments in 44 companies in 2015 compared to 39 companies in the two previous years. The number of successful private equity exits influences companies' ability to attract investors and raise funds. The report shows private equity firms in Africa still continue to outperform public markets. The financial services sector capped the highest exits at 24% between 2014 and 2015, while the oil and gas sector saw no exits during the same period. And Lafarge Africa is in the middle of a roadshow to market a 60 billion naira, that's about $302 million bond program to refinance loans at United Cement Company of Nigeria, which it acquired last year. The company's chief finance officer said there was strong interest for the bond and that book building was expected to open in the second week of May. The cement and clinker mixer said it had received approval from Nigeria's Securities and Exchange Commission for a 100 billion naira bond, but will issue 60 billion naira for 5 years. The Mall of Africa, a giant shopping mall, one of the largest in Africa, has opened a middle-class suburb between Johannesburg and Pretoria as South Africa's outlook for growth slows and debt rises. The mall has global brands H&M, Starbucks and Zara as part of their members.
Thousands of shoppers queued on Thursday at the opening of one of the largest malls in South Africa, set in middle-class suburb between Johannesburg and Pretoria. The Mall of Africa will house over 300 shops, including global brands such as Inditex, Zara, Hens and Moritz, Cotton On and Starbucks. They want to attract the rising number of young consumers in Africa's most developed economy, which has thrived on demand for commodities.
People are just buying because there's a big sale, nothing much, because most of the things are just normal price. But there are specials. If you were early, you slept here, you will get.
I'm very much surprised in terms of the response. You would have thought that a lot of people will not be able to afford, but what you're seeing and what we're experiencing is very different.
But the opening comes as the outlook for the economy worsens, with rising interest rates and prices putting a squeeze on spending, while demand for exports such as gold and other metals is depressed. Political uncertainty has also unsettled the rand currency, making imports more expensive and investors nervous. Retail sales have stayed robust, however, comfortably beating expectations in February, and retailers at the mall were in an optimistic mood.
We see a lot of potential in South Africa and in Africa, and today we've opened another flagship store here at the Mall of Africa. This is our third flagship store that we've opened in South Africa in a matter of 6-7 months. And yes, I think South Africans have a lot of good appetite for great fashion at a good price.
Shiny malls have sprung up throughout South Africa, creating thousands of jobs. But they come amid a backdrop of rising debt levels. Nearly half of all credit-active South Africans, or about 9.9 million people, are over-indebted. Retail sales grew by 4.1% year-on-year in February, but are expected to slow.
It's obvious times are tough for retail in South Africa, but I think it's times are tough for the consumer as well as for the retailers themselves. But you know, for us as a brand, we really focused on what we do and what we can do better in terms of the total customer experience, and creating value. So I guess that's what everybody should be focusing on, and not spend our time worrying too much about the macro factors and the macroeconomical influences.
The Treasury expects the economy to grow by 0.9% this year, down from 1.3% in 2015, and the central bank is expected to raise interest rates further to rein in inflation that has been driven higher by wage hikes, a depreciating rand, and surge in food prices after the worst drought in decades.
The threat of hunger is running high in Zimbabwe as the country experiences the worst drought in southern Africa in 2 decades. A recent government report indicates that close to 4 million people are faced with hunger, and aid agencies have appealed for funding to help buy grains.
An El Niño-induced drought has hit Zimbabwe hard, and in February, the country appealed for $1.6 billion in aid to help pay for grain and other food. In Weneza district, one of the worst hit regions, low food production has left many children vulnerable. The district hospital recorded 25 cases of severely malnourished children in February. At least 33,000 children require treatment for malnutrition across Zimbabwe. Health professionals in the country say they are worried because the cases are steadily rising.
Generally, the situation has been bad. Because I was looking at the statistics for admission of children on integrated management of acute malnutrition in the district. In January, there were 4 children who were admitted on this program, and then in February the number increased to 7. Then in the month of March again the number increased to 25 children who were admitted on the IMAM program. So to me it shows that the situation is bad.
Home to 175,000 people, Weneza is the second worst affected among Zimbabwe's 33 districts. About 50% of residents there require food assistance to see them through the drought. Government officials and donors warn that hunger will worsen in the 3rd quarter when depleted food reserves run out. The government has issued licenses to private millers to import grain, while organizations such as the United Nations World Food Programme are feeding 1 million people. Drought and low mineral commodity prices are taking their toll on the economy.
Currently, we have enough to support the humanitarian reaction up to the end of this month. That means beyond this month, we shall not have enough to be able to support children. So again, our appeal is around getting enough funding so that we can procure the necessary treatment for children with malnutrition.
A recent study by the CGIAR research program on climate change, agriculture and food security says global warming will continue to affect staple food crops like bananas, maize and beans in sub-Saharan Africa unless farmers learn to adapt. According to the study, 30% of sub-Saharan Africa's maize-growing areas, including in Zimbabwe, need to switch to different crops within the next decade.
When we come back after the break, we'll be tracking the FMDQ OTC market. To stay with us.